HTTP client service purpose is to communicate with APIs. And what is the purpose of RxJS? Asynchronous requests. To handle asynchronous requests, we need that. Now, after understanding that, so today we will see how we can work with Angular forms. How to deal with Angular forms. Actually, lot of points we already discussed about Angular forms. What are the points we learned? How to create a form, collect the data from the form and display the data, use the data. Form means text box, checkbox, radios, buttons, how to handle them. Already you learned how to design a form in general data binding concept we discussed. So actually Angular forms are classified into two types. One is template driven forms, and we have template driven forms and model driven forms. Model driven forms, or we call them as reactive forms. Reactive forms. These are the two important forms: template driven and reactive forms. Angular forms are classified into these two categories. What are those two categories we are having? Template driven, another one is model driven. Template and model driven forms. Now, what is the difference between these two? What is template driven and what is model driven? We will see one example, right? What is the difference between these two forms? Actually, while working with the forms, one important is template driven form is nothing but template driven form is nothing but forms are configured and handled at view level. View level means in UI, user interface. Forms are configured and handled at view level. So that means you remembered we learned MVVM approach, right? In MVVM approach, the complete configuration is done in user interface. So everything is defined in user interface only. That means actually it uses MVVM approach. Model view. So model view and view model approach. It uses MVVM approach. Now, how to design a form, how to access data from the form. One simple point I will explain here. Actually, so template driven forms, the library required for template driven form is defined in forms module of @Angular forms library. Forms module of Angular forms library. That means if you want to work with the forms, template driven forms, whatever members are required, all those members are defined in which module? Forms. And forms module is present in Angular forms library. Here, 2 points are there. So the form element is defined. The form element is defined by using ng form. It is defined by using ng form. And the other input elements, input and form elements. Form elements are defined by using ng model. We know this. Form is defined by using ng form and other elements are defined by using ng model. So we haven't used ng form, but now we can use that. We used already ng model. So if you want to use ng model in your Angular application, you have to import. You have to import which module? Forms module. So this I already told you when we learned about two-way binding technique. So when we'll discuss about MVC, MVVM approach, I showed you. Here, how to define the form element. You are writing a form. This form, you will have a reference name hash, some FRM register. It is configured as ng form. And the elements inside the form, suppose you are having a text box, input type is equal to text. This is defined with hash username. We know this, hash username, and we have to define as ng model. Another one, actually hash username is equal to ng model, and it will be first configured as what? Ng model. This is how we have to define. Suppose you are writing a drop down, then we have to use ng model and hash, suppose city is equal to what? Ng model. That is how we have to write different elements. Form is defined with ng form, and the elements inside form are defined by using ng model. So that is important. So when you are creating the forms, so to define that, this is important. Actually, now this is referring to form. FRM register is referring to form, and this is referring to an element. It is referring to an element. So now what is the advantage here is actually, so through this ng form, that means FRM register, you can access. FRM register provides attributes like value. Actually, this value is an object with the key and value collection. It's an object with key and value. That means key is nothing but element name and what value. That means you can access all elements and their values which are present inside form by using just FRM register.value. FRM register.value, it will return all the elements and their values. That means with one reference. For example, previously, if I have 10 fields in a form and we need to access all the 10 fields, then individually we need to access username, password, age, mobile, email, like that. But now with just FRM register.value, you can access all the details of the form. That means how many elements are there in the form, what values are present in those elements, everything you can access just by using one attribute. What is it? Value. It is an object with the key and value collection. And what are keys? Keys are nothing but element name is key. Element name is key. And element value is value. Element value is its value. So that is what actually it returns. Element name is key and element value is its value. That's what actually this FRM register handles. So technically, while working with the forms, first you need to define how to configure and handle this. Now I will show one example how to use this. One simple example we will see. What is the good and bad about this approach? Everything is defined in UI. Then what is good and bad about this approach? Everything is in UI na. Then what is good and bad about this approach is, so what is good about is it reduces the number of requests. It reduces the number of requests. It improves the load time. It improves the load time. So it improves load time. So load time is better improved when compared to the previous. So it reduces the number of requests and it improves the load time. Another, what is problem in this? What is problem in this approach? The problem in this approach is separation, reusability and extensibility issues will be there. If I want reusing the form elements, I want extending the form. Extending the form means a form should change according to situation. Generally, forms can change according to situation. For example, if you have seen websites, when you are filling a form, you might have observed that suppose sometimes it asks from which country you are. You said I am from India and this website belongs to Indian. That means it's an Indian government website and you are the resident of India. Then it will ask like, okay, then enter your Aadhaar card details. Right? You said I am non-resident of India, some NRI. Then it says, then enter your passport details. That means the fields for Aadhaar card are different. The fields for passport are different. The form should change according to what user selected. That means, for example, you see, suppose even registration forms also change. Suppose we have some HDFC bank. In this HDFC bank website, suppose I am having personal NRI. You go to personal and select register. Then it will give one form. But you go to NRI in register, that form is different. It has a lot of other details when compared to this. That means based on your role, based on your designation, or based on your availabilities and based on your profession, it changes the form. That means those forms are not static, they are dynamic. They can change according to situation. Such forms we cannot create by using this template approach. That means you want some login form, which is standard. It will have only two details, user ID and password. And it will not have any extensions. It will not have any changes. Always it will works in a same way. Then better you can go with which approach? Template. Template driven forms are good when you need a form without any extensions, without any issues of reusabilities. So template driven forms are not good when you want any form to change dynamically according to situation. How a form changes according to situation, you are going to see that you can do by using reactive forms, or we call them as model driven forms, right? So what are the good features about template driven? It reduces the number of requests, it improves the page load time, but it is not good for reusability, separation and extensibility. Let's see how you can configure. I will just add a new component here. So I will open components, ng generate component, and I will say template form. Okay, template form skip this. I'm creating a template form, and here we will keep that in the startup. So we will keep that in the startup. So just I am adding here template form in the startup. Okay. And in index, let's keep template form. Okay. So this is a simple form. Let's run this and see. Now in this, let's design the template form. It's working fine. Let's create a simple template form and see. So in the components, in the template form, yeah, I'm going to HTML page. Here we need to design. But as I already told you, this template form requires forms module. So make sure that you imported the forms module in app module. In app module, we have to import a module called forms. That already we done while working with two-way binding. When we are using ng model comes from the forms module. Already we done that. You have to import forms module from Angular forms, then you can use it. Now let's go here and let's design a simple option, register user. I'm just adding a data list, some data term, some here user name, and data definition input type is text. Now I am keeping this entire registration details in a form element. So we are keeping all these details in a form element. In a form, we are configuring all the details. Now here we have username and some age, and we have to define input type is equal to some number. And here we have another term, some city, and data definition, we have a select. Select just uses an option. So this is a simple drop down we are configuring. Okay. Now I'm just adding an option into that. So we have Delhi,